have you not.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Squad Up, and we finally got our big 2.0 Squadrons update. There are over 270 plus fixes and tweaks in Update 2.0, not all of which was posted in the patch notes, as some of it was very minor, extremely rare, or sometimes players never experienced it. For everything else, I will not be literally going over every single thing in the patch notes. It's very lengthy. A lot of it just says fixed issue. I'll just be going over the main points that affect you players the most. First, fleet battles received the most changes, getting a better overall player experience. The three main updates dealing directly with just fleet battles are adjustments to AI starfighters, capital ship aggressiveness, and the ranking system fix. The goal of the AI adjustments was to limit the ability to farm AI and end up creating lockdown scenarios in games. This was accomplished by Motive through two methods. One was updating the AI starfighter pathing on every map, and two, changing the AI starfighter kill values to 4 morale on defense and 1 morale on offense, but also not detailed in the patch notes was that it is also 4 morale in the dogfight phase, which used to be 5. In the few games I've played since the update, I've definitely noticed the pathing difference where the AI starfighters are much more in the defender zone during their phases that they are defending their cruisers, frigates, and the capital ship. Although I do have a little bit of concern that they might be a bit too close to the defenders, because with a well-coordinated defensive team, you can flip back to offense relatively quickly because of the AI being so close. The value being 4 on defense means if the offensive team doesn't make their attacks fast enough, the defensive team can AI creep the bar pretty quickly to half and then take out a couple of enemy starfighters making their runs in, shortening the attack phase pretty quickly. So that's on my radar a little bit on what this change has done that could be maybe over-tuned. And like I mentioned, the dogfight phase, while the AI creep value has been lowered from 5 to 4, 4 is still enough to quickly transition the phase from dogfight into attacking or defending, which could completely be intentional by Motive. But it's still too easy to completely focus on enemy AI squadrons and shoot them down with a couple of multi-lock missile bombers, which can turn the phase to attacking extremely quick while ignoring the corvettes and mostly enemy players. It's still going to be very important for any interceptors or fighters to make sure they focus on those bombers in the early dogfight phase to try and limit how much AI they can get. So maybe the point values for the AI squadrons are still too high in the dogfight phase, but overall this is definitely a step in the right direction though. Games feel better going back and forth. Most games complete with both teams destroying the cruisers or frigates, or at least very close to destruction. Just giving both teams a more back and forth experience and not stuck defending for an entire time in most games is better overall for players. The capital and flagship adjustments were focused on their turrets' aggressiveness towards players moving either very slowly or what they called mosquitoing, where ships would just park right next to the targeted enemy flagship and unload damage and not be punished enough for doing so by the ship they're shooting at. There are no hard numbers, but overall the capital ship turrets are now much more deadlier to slow and close enemy players and less deadlier to fast and farther away enemy players. On top of that, the flagships are much more aggressive when being attacked out of phase. So if the phase is about to turn over and the team that's attacking is considering making another attack run, they better make sure that that attack is going to either get rid of a subsystem or take out literally the entire capital ship and end the game. Because diving when the bar is so close to turning over and then taking an offensive team and putting onto defense that capital ship will easily destroy anyone that's in their range of fire. And then that puts you, obviously, you have to wait till you respawn, allowing the enemy team to attack with less defending opposition. It is also worth noting that the Corvette turrets are affected by this change in some manner because their offensive firepower, both obviously on the players, but also when attacking enemy capital and flagships, have seemingly been boosted. I've definitely noticed that in the game so far. The Corvettes are more valuable across the board, whether it's taking out because they're more threatening and to help your morale bar, or trying to keep alive, or at least using it as an actual attack vector if you're following along with it, or if it's on the other side, it's definitely enough of a distraction so that the players can make their run on the opposite side of the Corvette. Finally, we got the ranking and matchmaking adjustment that Squadrons desperately needed. Players now have the option to perform a one-time ranking reset for this operation in their ranking menu, so that for players that got stuck at skill rating 0, you 100% want to do this to get yourself unstuck and replaced in the 10 placement matches and continue ranking up as you can through the rest of the first Squadrons operation. And now we have our very first player starfighter balance tuning with the TIE Bomber, which was greatly outperforming its Y-Wing counterpart, and we'll touch on slightly why it's still probably better than the Y-Wing even in this new state. Baseline, these are the two changes to the TIE Bomber. The TIE Bomber's default hull is decreased from 2,500 down to 2,000. And the TIE Bomber reinforced hull benefit has decreased from plus 100% to just plus 50%. Overall, the decrease in the TIE Bomber hull and percentage increase from the reinforced hull should make taking out these chonky bombers easier. I've definitely noticed it when I've had to be on defense trying to take out opposing TIE Bombers, and I felt it when I was a TIE Bomber myself on offense. Before this update, I'd actually transitioned into using Agile Hull more on my TIE Bombers because I was utilizing a multi-lock missile and proton torpedo build most of the time, which didn't force me to get in close to enemy capital ships where I would be using the beam cannon. But now with that hull decrease even further with this update, I may have to rethink or at least mix in using reinforced hull on certain attack runs or builds more on my TIE Bombers. And like I mentioned before, I still believe the TIE Bomber has a solid advantage over the Y-Wing, and it's mainly because the ability to power shunt on the TIE Bomber is very, very good. For those who haven't really used it as much, the power shunting really gives you an advantage to changing your power to engines and power to weapons much, much faster than the New Republic counterparts. And the TIE Bomber just basically having all of its health being in hull means when it's repair and resupplied from friendly supports, it nets more repaired health than when the Y-Wing gets the same effect from their U-Wings. And then finally, the speed of the Y-Wing is just really bad by comparison. And with the need to perform faster attack runs within your attack phase because it's easier to turn the morale bar over on defense, getting multiple runs in is still much easier with the TIE Bomb. But we'll have to see going forward with this new update how things change and adjust within the Fleet Battles game itself, and how players and teams all evolve their strategies, tactics, and builds going forward. There was an update to the new matchmaking and lobby system, which was explained in very good detail by Dan Kim, the senior systems designer. Basically, there's a new forfeit system implemented for Fleet Battles, which is replacing the quote, safe to leave and match not scored system. The previous system was often difficult for players to understand, which led to unduly punishments for well-behaved players, along with some players feeling robbed of wins, locked into pointless matches, or unrewarded for time spent when leaving these safe to leave games. The new system, in Dan Kim's words, puts control back into the player's hands and allows players to decide which matches are worth fighting until the end and which are worth forfeiting. In either case, players will be fully rewarded on both sides. When dealing with players that have teammates that have abandoned them, the players that were abandoned will still gain full progression rewards, but only take half the skill point loss, while the player that abandoned their teammates receives a full loss and leaver penalties, which have been significantly increased. On top of that, a new lobby backfill mechanic was added. While in the briefing room stage of fleet battles, the game will attempt to backfill open slots even in ranked games for when players leave in the briefing room stage. There is a timer that prevents the briefing room stage from persisting forever, where in the case backfills cannot be found within the time limit. The server will close and players will be returned to the main menu without penalty. Players that leave during the briefing will not receive a game loss, but will still be subject to some leaver penalties, which are not as severe as when they would leave in match. The overall goal being to just make sure more full games are being played, and when things go wrong, players will still be properly rewarded for staying and properly punished for abandoning their teammates. Finally, a few small adjustments I think that are worth noting. In Dogfight on Esselis, Motive has improved the spawn points to help players feel less separated from the fight when respawning. In practice mode, more obstacle courses have been added for the players to test their skills, which were pretty fun. I got a chance to try them all out. A couple of quality of life improvements were done for the social aspect of partying up via crossplay, and the notification system for being more clear when you get those invites. Beyond all that, just a lot of AI improvements, VR fixes, and story fixes to finish this 2.0 patch overview. And that's all for 2.0 update patch for Squadrons. Again, this was a big step in my mind, and the fleet battle experience has changed for the good from what I've experienced so far. The games I've played have all felt either closer, more engaging, and even though I knew in some games that my squadron had a pretty significant lead, it still felt like the opposing team got to engage with the entire fleet battles experience more because they got to be on the attack phase more often than they would have used to have been prior to this update. Unfortunately, with all these AI squadron creep updates, both pathing and values, and how fleet battles has evolved potentially to those quicker attack phases, so how strategies are going to need to evolve, my AI creep in you video is already outdated now to some degree, and I'll make a 2.0 of that, which should be shorter, only going over what the update has changed and what I've experienced or what has worked for me once I've played many more games in this update 2.0 environment. Also, I received a lot of good feedback from my last video from the full competitive fleet battle game with Salmon Squadron being myself versus Burt Squadron. I'm really glad everyone enjoyed it, and I'm excited to get more of those types of videos to you to watch to enjoy great fleet battles matchups. The updated ranking and matchmaking system definitely seems to be putting me into mostly closer matches against similarly skilled players, which is awesome. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, comment below on how you felt so far playing in the 2.0 update of Squadrons, and let me know what you think was the best change in it. I'll see you next time. Squad up, everyone.